4 sticky little boys. On one Tuesday evening, after Mr. Twit had been up the ladder and smeared the tree with Pug-Tite, 4 little boys crept into the garden to look at the monkeys. They didn't care about the thistles and stingy nettles, not when there were monkeys to look at. After a while, they got tired of looking at the monkeys, so they explored further into the garden and found the ladder leaning against the big, dead tree. They decided to climb it just for fun. There's nothing wrong with that. The next morning, when Mr. Twit went out to collect the birds, he found 4 miserable little boys sitting in the tree, stuck as tight as could be by the seat of their pants to the branches. There were no birds because the presence of the boys had scared them away. Mr. Twit was furious.
"As there are no birds for my pie tonight,"
he shouted,
"then it'll have to be boys instead."
He started to climb the ladder.
"Boy pie might be better than bird pie,"
he went on, grinning horribly.
"More meat and not so many tiny little bones."
The boys were terrified.
"He's gonna boil us,"
cried one of them. "He'll stew us alive," wailed the second one.
"Oh, he'll cook us with carrots,"
cried the third. But the 4th little boy, who had more sense than the others, whispered, "Listen, I've got a plan. We're only stuck by the seats of our pants. So quick, unbutton your pants and step out of them and fall to the ground." Mr. Twit had reached the top of the ladder and was about to make a grab for the nearest boy when they all suddenly tumbled out of the tree and ran for home with their naked bottoms winking at the sky. Oh my.
The Great Upside Down Monkey Circus. Now for the monkeys. The 4 monkeys in the cage in the garden were all one family. They were Mugglewump and his wife and their 2 small children. But what on earth were Mr. and Mrs. Twit doing with monkeys in their garden? Well, in the old days, they had both worked in a circus as monkey trainers. They used to teach monkeys to do tricks and to dress up in human clothes and to smoke pipes and all the rest of that nonsense. Today, although they were retired, Mr. Twit still wanted to train monkeys. It was his dream that one day he would own the first great upside-down monkey circus in the world. Who would have thought? That meant that monkeys had to do everything upside down. They had to dance upside down or on their hands with their feet in the air. They had to play football upside down. They had to balance one on top of the other upside down with Mugglewump at the bottom and the smallest baby monkey at the very top. They even had to eat and drink upside down, and that is not an easy thing to do because the food and water has to go up your throat instead of down it. In fact, it was almost impossible. But the monkeys simply had to do it, otherwise they got nothing. This all sounds pretty silly to you and me. It sounded pretty silly to the monkeys, too. They absolutely hated having to do this upside-down nonsense day after day. It made them giddy standing on their heads for hours on end. Sometimes the 2 small monkey children would faint with so much blood going to their heads, but Mr. Twit didn't care about that. He kept them practicing for 6 hours every day. And if they didn't do as they were told, Mrs. Twit would soon come running with her beastly stick. The monkey's on this page. Upside down. And a beastly stick. Sorry.
The roly-poly bird to the rescue. Mugglewump and his family longed to escape from the cage in Mr. Twit's garden and go back to the African jungle where they came from. They hated Mr. and Mrs. Twit for making their lives so miserable. They also hated them for what they did to the birds every Tuesday and Wednesday. "Fly away, birds!" they used to shout, jumping about in the cage and waving their arms. "Don't sit on that big dead tree! It's just been smeared all over with sticky glue. Go and sit somewhere else!"
It's good monkey voice.
Thank you. But these were English birds, and they couldn't understand the weird African language the monkeys spoke. So they took no notice and went on using the big dead tree and getting hot for Mrs. Twit's bird pie. This is them trying to warn the birds.
African language, right? There's a little imperialism thrown in there for good measure.
Then one day, a truly magnificent bird flew down out of the sky and landed on the monkey cage. "Good heavens!" cried all the monkeys together. "It's the roly-poly bird! What on earth are you doing over here in England?" Roly-poly bird? Like the monkeys, the roly-poly bird came from Africa, and he spoke the same language as they did.
"Oh, I've come for a holiday," said the roly-poly bird. I like to travel." He fluffed his
He fluffed his marvelous colored feathers and looked down rather grandly at the monkeys.
"Oh, for most people,"
he went on,
"flying away on holiday is very expensive, but I can fly anywhere in the world for nothing."
"Do you know how to talk to these English birds?" Mugglewump asked him.
"Of course I do,"
said the roly-poly bird.
"It's no good going to a country and not knowing the language."
"Then we must hurry," said Mugglewump. "Today is Tuesday, and over there you can already see the revolting Mr. Twit up the ladder, painting sticky glue on the branches of the big dead tree. This evening, when the birds come in to roost, you must warn them not to perch on that tree, or they will be made into bird pie."
Man, you speak good monkey.
Thank you. Yeah. That evening, the roly-poly bird flew around and around the big dead tree, singing out,
"Oh, there's stick stuff all over the tree. If you land in the branches, you'll never get free. So fly away, stay up high, or you'll finish up tomorrow in hot bird pie."
Here's the roly-poly bird visiting Mugglewump and family.
It's a bit imperialistic, I must say. Oh, no bird pie for Mr. Twit. Ooh, he's not going to be happy about that. The next morning, when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket to snatch all the birds from the big dead tree, there wasn't a single one on it. They were all sitting on top of the monkey cage. The roly-poly bird was there as well, and Mugglewump and his family were inside the cage, and the whole lot of them were laughing at Mr. Twit.
Still no bird pie for Mr. Twit. Mr. Twit wasn't going to wait another week for his bird pie supper. He loved bird pie. It was his favorite meal. So that very same day, he went after the birds again. This time, he smeared all the top bars of the monkey cage with sticky glue, as well as the branches of the big dead tree.
"Now I'll get you,"
he said.
"Whichever one you sit on."
The monkeys crouched inside the cage watching all this, and later on, when the roly-poly bird came swooping in for an evening chat, they shouted out, "Don't land on our cage, roly-poly bird! It's covered with sticky evening, as the sun went down and all the birds came in again to roost, the roly-poly bird flew around and around the monkey cage and the big dead tree, singing out his warning.
There's sticky stuff now on the cage and the tree. If you land on either, you'll never get free. So fly away, stay up high, or you'll finish up tomorrow in a hot bird pie.